Great. We are now recording this session, and I'm going to kick things off here. Um, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Eric Groves. I am the co-founder and CEO here at Alignable. We're excited to have you here today to learn about federal government contracting. And for some of you that have not attended an Alignable webinar in the past, this is an ongoing series where we bring in experts to help business owners like you solve your most pressing business challenges. And our goal for the series is really to educate you about all the options that you have, so ultimately you can make an informed decision based on what's best for you. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Victoria Guerrero, who is the former SBA director, and excitingly now a member of the Alignable team. And so Victoria has been our guest here and spent many sessions with us over the past 6 months, really helping business owners understand all that the SBA has to offer. And now she's become an enormous resource for you here permanently at Alignable. So we're excited to welcome Victoria to our team and leverage her vast knowledge as a small business expert and make her even more approachable to you through a variety of things. So today's session is all about understanding government contracting. The federal government is the world's largest customer with billions and billions and billions in contracts. In 2020 alone, the number was north of 560 billion. And surprisingly, many small business owners don't know this, that roughly 25% of what the federal government spends is earmarked to be spent with small business contractors. Now, their definition of small business is fairly large, and Victoria will talk a little bit about that. But suffice it to say, the federal government has set up this program to really embrace small businesses. And in 2020, it was to the tune of $146 billion in terms of grants that went to small business owners. So it's a huge pot. There's a lot of money to go around, and the government spends on a lot of different things. It's not just building bridges. If you think about all of the different departments in the federal government, and everything from catering to construction, HVAC, you name it, the federal government contracts for it. So our goals for today's session is really to provide you with a high-level understanding for how this all works. We're not going to go super deep into each component of it, but what we would love for you to do is we're going to point you towards the government contracting group on Alignable. And on the right-hand panel of that group, you're going to find a bunch of resources. The resources are going to direct you off to a bunch of things we're going to talk about today, but there's also a link there to a survey. And what we would love for you to do is to go take that survey after this session and tell us exactly what segments of this discussion you would like us to go deep on. And then we will tee up additional sessions, and Victoria will use her resources to bring people in, and we will help you understand each component. So we may not get as deep as you wanted today, but we're going to cover the full range. And we're going to then look to you to tell us what more you would like, and we will make sure that we bring those to you. We're going to spend about 20-30 minutes talking through a brief presentation that we have on how this all works, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And so the way the questions work is to go into the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and click on that and ask your question there. We have a team of folks from Alignable who are going to take your questions, try and organize them, tee them up to me. I'm going to ask Victoria those questions, and we're going to try and get through as many of them as we possibly can today. But if we don't get to all your questions, have no fear. We're going to put that link to the government contracting group. You'll find answers to the questions there. You'll also be able to go right into that group, post your questions, and get answers from Victoria and others who are members of that group. So a phenomenal resource for you. One caveat as you do go to post, please remember these are open forums. So don't put any personal information in there that you don't want shared with 7 million of your closest friends. Because believe it or not, that's where we're up to now on Alignable in terms of our membership. So super exciting. We've had roughly 240 people sign in for the session today out of the 1,000 people that registered. So we are going to try and get to as many questions as we can. We may not get to yours. If you don't, have no fear. Go back to that group, post it there, and we will get some answers for you. This government contracting group is also going to continue to evolve over time. And so there'll be a link to this webinar there. There'll be a survey there that you can take. And then ultimately, we're thinking of creating additional subgroups based on the different components that we're going to go through today. So enough on all of that. Let me get to introducing you to Victoria. Victoria, now a member of the Alignable team, but Victoria, give everybody a little bit of your background and what brought you to Alignable, and what are you hoping to share with our guests here today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric. And I'm so honored to be here with Alignable and with the Alignable family. So thank you so much for that. And for all of you that are watching, I have also been a small business owner in my past life. So I understand all of the challenges and the hurdles and the frustrations that we all go through, right, when we're starting a business or even growing our business. So I relate to you, and I look forward to connecting with you in our Alignable group for government contracting. I'm here to help you with any questions that you may have. A little bit about my background. So I do have a master's in business, but I really have done a lot of work in the organization development realm, the change management realm. I've also done a lot of consulting for different industries in the small business arena, as well as large businesses too. And I've worked for state, local, and federal governments, as well as Fortune 500 companies. So I have, I guess, a little bit of a good mixture between public and private sector. I always say I'm a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So I will be able to assist you with different questions that you may have, regardless of the industry that you're in, because as small business owners, we all kind of have the same challenges. So again, thank you so much for having me here. I look forward to developing these wonderful relationships with you through our government contracting group. So please go there and join today so we can continue our conversation after our webinar.
Fantastic. And Victoria was a district director in charge of the entire Florida, Miami area, and dealt with pretty much everything at the SBA. So if there are topics unrelated to this that you would like to dive into, we will certainly put those into the Q&A or the chat, and we will make sure that we bring you those, because Victoria is basically joined to run events, to educate you, and to run groups to educate you, to help you bring resources to you. And as you'll see today, it's going to be, she's a vast, I take issue with her not a master of anything, because she's absolutely a master of many things. So today we're going to get started. We're going to kind of break down the process for you into two buckets, right? We're going to use a little Hamilton and say we're going to get into the room where it happens first. Step one, how do you prepare yourself, register with the government, and get accepted into the room of government contracting? And then what we're going to do is talk about, once you're in the room, how do you participate? How does the bidding process work? How are contracts awarded? What should you be doing throughout this process to make sure that you're improving your odds? And ultimately, the fulfillment of contracts, what you need to make sure you're set up for in terms of to drive to success. So let's get things started. Whoops, jumped right ahead with step one, getting into the room where it happens. So Victoria, let's start off with the preparation phase. How should business owners think about this step in the process? What are the questions they should be asking themselves? And what are the considerations should they be thinking about?
Thank you so much for that. So I've already seen some questions pop up in regards to this. A lot of people want to know, does the government even buy the things that I create? Are they interested in my service? I make paper clips for a living. Is this something that I can sell to the government? Well, the answer is the government buys everything, even paper clips or napkins or caps. The thing is that you need to do your research and kind of take a look at what the government is looking to purchase now. A lot of our programs, and we're going to get into this a little bit, our different certification programs, but you want to really make sure that you come into the field when you're ready to obtain those contracts and to fulfill on those contracts. So one of the first things, Eric, that I always tell folks is do your research before you decide to go into the federal contracting arena. How do you go about that? So One of the things that I always recommend to folks is to go to the federal procurement database system and usspending.gov. Now, again, all these links are going to be in our Alignable government contracting group. So remember to join there, because you can click all those links in that area and it'll take you to these locations. But
yeah, and they'll be up there in the top right-hand corner when you log in. It'll say resources and they'll all be listed there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, jump on in. I love our conversation. So yeah, basically these two sites are really going to show you what the government is purchasing. So that'll answer your question. Is the government purchasing what you're selling or your services? It's going to show you which agencies within the federal government are more interested in the products that you have or the services that you have. It's going to show you past contracts. So it's going to give you a good idea about how much the contracts are worth, how the bidding was, what's the amount that won. So it's really a great area to kind of focus in to create your strategy. So if you think that if you look in there and government isn't buying what you're selling at the moment, maybe right now is not the time to jump in, but you can always revisit it later in the year and see if you see these contracts moving where they're asking for products or services that you can deliver upon. So always prepare, always do your homework and go in there and take a look at it. Now, a word of caution, when you go in there, the federal procurement database, it's a little bit overwhelming, but there's going to be a section there where you can search what you sell, and then that's going to give you additional information. The usspending.gov, it's a little bit more user-friendly, so you'll be able to navigate on there and kind of find the information that you're looking for. One other thing I wanted to share with them, Eric, is the federal agency procurement forecast. So this is another link that when you go in there, it's going to show you what every agency is looking to spend in the next year. So on an annual basis, every federal agency, they will upload what their procurement forecast is going to be, what it is that they think they're going to be looking for in the following year. So this is also a good area to go to kind of review if they are buying what you're selling, whether it's a product or a service. Something else I want folks to really think about. A lot of times we want to make sure that you have a good, successful track record. Your company has a good reputation, and you're going to have the staffing available to be able to fulfill on these government contracts. And we'll go later on, we'll speak a little bit about what does a good, successful track record look like. I saw some questions on there that people are asking, well, do I need to have contracting experience to be in the federal contracting program? You don't, you can join in, but I highly recommend that you get some contracting experience, because that will help you land contracts in the future. And how do you do that? You look at your local municipalities, your private sector clients. Like if you sell hospital equipment, go to your hospital, see if you can get a private contract with them. So there are other ways, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move on.
Fantastic. So I've done my homework. I've seen that they're buying my paper clips. I'm ready to actually say, hey, I got to turn my company on for this to be part of this. What's the first step in the process of registering to actually be able to sell to the government?
Yeah, well, you go to sam.gov. So sam.gov is the system that you would go to tell the government, hey, I'm here and I qualify and I'm ready to go. These are my services and these are my products. Think of registering with sam.gov as putting up your resume for the federal government. It's your platform to show them who you are, what you do, what services and products you provide. Now, before you go to sam.gov, it's free to register, so I don't want folks to worry about that, but you do need a DUNS number, and you are going to need to know what your NAICE codes are. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Your DUNS number is a Dun & Bradstreet number, and there is a link on our Alignable group that you would click on to be able to go to that site to obtain your DUNS number. Basically, it's an identification. It's about 9 digits long, and it's another location where you can put information about your company. It basically helps suppliers, vendors, federal contractors take a look at your business to see if they want to do business with you. It gives them a little bit more of a deeper dive on who you are, what you do, where you're located, things of that nature. So you definitely want to go to Dun & Bradstreet. and make sure that you register and you get your DUNS number. Secondly, you know, a lot of people, they say, well, I'm in construction, right? So we need to get a NAICS code for you. So a NAICS code is a North America industry, and I always say standardization code, but Eric, you might have, I always flip those two. Around classification system, North America Industry Classification System. We use the acronyms NAICS. So what this is, it's a location where you would go to. It's in our census site, but again, all these website is in our Alignable group. You would go there to take a look. What are your NAICS codes? What are the services or the products that you create? For every service you create, there's going to be a certain code that you want to utilize to put into sam.gov. Why? Because that code or those codes, because you can use more than one, is going to tell the federal government what you do. So it's very important that you kind of think about what is your main code and what are your subcodes. So for example, I'm a construction company. I'll ask the small business, well, what else do you do other than construct? Do you demolish things? Yes, I demolish things. Do you clean up after yourself? Yes, I clean up. So and then as we start digging a little bit deeper, they can have additional NAICS codes. They can be cleanup. They can be demolition. So there's additional NAICS codes. And why is this important? Because as a federal contractor, when I'm looking through SAM and I'm looking for contractors or things that I want to put out there to bid, I'm going to use these NAICS codes. And you want to make sure you put as many NAICS codes, but keep it honest, you know, as many NAICS codes as you can, so it matches and you qualify for those bids that are out there. We don't want to leave anything in the table. So, so that's a little bit about NAICS codes. So you would go, when you register, you want to go to sam.gov and make sure you have your DUNS number, make sure you know your NAICS codes, because it's going to ask you for that. You got to know your business information. Something also to keep in mind, if you're not set up to do electronic payments or receive electronic payments, you might want to look into that, because a lot of the federal agency are now moving into electronic payments so they can pay you electronically. So something to think about.
Fantastic. Now, I love this analogy of building out my resume. And because it's all about what am I going to do to kind of improve my odds. And there's some certifications that you can get, because part of that 25% has been allocated to very specific businesses. Do you want to take a quick run through the certifications and just give people a quick taste of what they're all about? Because this is one of the questions we have on the survey, is which of these programs would you like us to dive deeper into so you can get a thorough understanding for it? But you know, let's just give people a high level of what are the different certifications and what do they mean?
Okay, absolutely. So we have there's a lot of various different certification programs out there for our small businesses. So the you know, luxury of it, if I had to say, you know, these are cars, you know, 8A business development program is the one that is the most intense. You have to apply to be accepted. It can take anywhere up to 9 months or maybe a little bit more to go through the application process. And there are going to have to be a lot of documents that are going to be required of you as a small business owner, but everything will be uploaded. It's now done electronically. And with this 8A program, it's a business development program that is good for 9 years. It's a once in a lifetime program available to small business owners to sell your services or your products to the federal government. And it is good for up to 9 years. The nice thing about this program is that, you know, there are other resources that will be able to help you. You'll have access to sole source. So for example, one sole source contract can render up to $4 million. And I'm not going to go into all the lingo about, you know, different types of contracts and things of that nature, but I share this to let you know that this business development program is supposed to be to help small businesses grow in the federal arena. And then that will continue to launch you to either continue in that contracting arena or do a mix of, you know, federal government, local, state, and private sector too. So it's available for all of our small businesses. Again, it's at no charge. Next, we have the small disadvantaged businesses. So these again, all these others that you see, small disadvantaged, the women-owned small businesses, veteran or disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Those sections, those certifications there, one of the criteria is that you have to be at least 51% owned and operated by either a woman or a veteran or a disabled veteran. So you can qualify for these types of certification. The last one that we see here is the Hubzone certification. So Hubzone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. So if you have a small business and you're located in this hub zone, what we call hub zone, then you have access to set asides that the government puts sets aside a certain number of dollars to provide to companies that are located in these historically underutilized business zones, these hub zones. So you can actually compete for that. Same thing, the government has certain dollars that are set aside for women-owned businesses, for small disadvantaged businesses. So this is great for you. I always tell folks, try to get as many certifications as you can. Why? Because the federal contracting arena is huge, but more certifications that you get, the smaller that competition pool becomes, which means you have a higher likelihood of getting that contract. So that's just a brief overview of all the different certification programs that are out there.
Fantastic. And as we said, these are quite one of the questions in the survey is which of these do you want us to dive deeper into? So take that survey, let us know, and we will set up sessions specifically for as many of these as you're interested in. So I've now registered, I've got all my certifications, I submit my applications. I'm sitting there waiting to hear back whether or not I'm in. What other things should I be thinking about in terms of setting myself up for success once I do get approved into this program that I can be doing in the meantime?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that I've seen in the past, those that are successful in government contracting is a few things. One, they set themselves up for success. So what does that mean and what does that look like? They go out there and while they're waiting to get registered, or maybe they say, I'm not ready to do federal contracting. I want to build up my contracting portfolio. So I'm going to go to my local city, my local municipality, or to my school board and get some contracts with them. And get a good reputation for fulfilling your contracts on time and within budget. You can also go to the private sectors, like I mentioned, to hospitals and other private sector entities that do contracting. Why is that important? Again, because when it comes to federal contracting, if they see you already have contracting experience, that's great for the contractor because that means you understand the lingo, you understand the timing, when to bill, things of that nature. So I would recommend to kind of talk to your local municipality and say, hey, I'm interested in selling my service or my product to your city. How do I go about that? Every municipality has a different way, a different system to kind of to register with. So I would highly recommend that. Something else to think about is working as a subcontractor. So either you become a subcontractor to a prime company. So you'll hear us say prime and subcontractor. So prime are just larger companies that hire subcontractors to do their work. You see that a lot in construction or roofing companies. So you might want to position yourself to be a subcontractor to one of these larger entities, because that's also going to get you a lot of experience in the contracting world. Next, Great. You want to think about getting coaching. Join our Alignable group. We'll be able to guide you and coach you and answer questions for you. Learn how to write proposals. It's really important, if you can, to have somebody trained, and this is why I say our Alignable group is so important. Have someone trained to know where to go to look for these bids and how to look for them, and then how to write the proposal to be able to create a winning proposal to get that proposal in front of that contracting officer. So these are some type of training sessions that you might think, or workshops or webinars that you want to come to. And again, make sure you have the staffing to deliver on those contracts.
Fantastic. And I've been cheating ahead and looking at the questions, and we have some fantastic questions. So I'm going to keep charging forward, and we'll try and cover this really quickly so we can get through over to your questions, because there are some fantastic ones in there. So now I've got approved. I'm into step 2, participating in this process. There's sort of 3 components to this, finding opportunities and bidding, winning those. Why didn't I win? Who won? How do I win? How, if I didn't win, what else can I do to actually get a piece of that pie? And then that got changed. It's actually fulfillment, the last one there, rather than acceptance. But it's the fulfillment of the actual contracts and what that entails. So do you want to kind of take each one of those steps real quickly, and then we'll jump off to some questions?
Absolutely. And I'll do this a little bit quick because we've kind of already spoken a lot about different aspects of this. So finding and bidding for process. Remember, these are those links that I mentioned that you want to go to when you're doing your prep work. While you're doing that prep work to finding if the government is buying what you're selling, these are the same links you're going to go to find these bids and know which agency you want to work with. Now, just like in business, networking is key when it comes to government contracting. And when you go and you find this contract, it's going to tell you who your contracting officer is. You want to make sure that you build a relationship with contracting officers as you go through your process. So even if you don't win a contract, you always want to make sure and go back and say, hey, why didn't I win? What could I have done better? What was wrong with my proposal? And some of them will actually sit down and help you with that and say, well, this is why X, Y, and Z. And you're going to learn from that. You're going to build that relationship with your contracting officers, which is going to help you next time around. So I would always say, make sure just as you network for business, you network within the federal contracting arena as well. Other things to consider is becoming a subcontractor, like we just mentioned, to a prime contractor. That will also help you break into the federal contracting world. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions and lean on your resources that you have around there. Now, as you go through the acceptance or the fulfillment phase, we want to make sure that when you're doing your contract, that you are meeting all your deadlines, that you are meeting your budget, you're not going over budget, and that you continue to network with the agency that has hired you. Why? Because that's just going to help your reputation, and you're going to be known out there as the go-to person to go to get these contracts to.
Fantastic. And one of the things that you had mentioned, we were sort of prepping for this, was there's certain times of year where it's advantageous to jump in and see what's going on. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sometimes, depending on the product or the services you provide, there are some certain types of years that's more advantageous. But what we know internally, what we've seen is that as we come to the end of the fiscal year, a lot of times there has been contracts that have not been posted and sent out. So you'll tend to see a bit of a surge of contracts being posted towards the end of the fiscal year. Why? Because the government needs to fulfill these contracts before the end of the fiscal year. So they're looking for folks to give these contracts to. Now, remember, Eric, as you mentioned at the beginning, the government has a certain goal of funds and that they need to give to these small businesses. And small businesses, rule of thumb is 500 employees or less. But like I said, that's a lot of companies. So you want to make sure that you position yourself and you know when to jump in so you can make the most of your federal contracting journey.
Fantastic. All right. So let's go really quickly into two scenarios. This was awesome. I love it. I'm ready to go. What should I do to get going? And okay, that just scared the heck out of me. I got to get my toe wet. I'm going to do some things to get ready before I'm ready to jump in. So let's just tackle real quickly those two, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Absolutely. So if you're ready, I would recommend, first of all, join our Alignable group. We're going to be there as a resource for you. Make sure you get your DUNS number, your NACE codes, and register with sam.gov. Let the government know that you're out there and you are ready to do business with them. Market yourself, find the contracts and the bids, really get to know those websites that we mentioned. The more you know how to navigate that, the more information you're going to be able to pull from that. So really spend some time there and consider obtaining those certifications that we mentioned. A lot of these, some of those are self-certifying, others are at no cost. You can get, hire somebody to certify you. But those certifications are also going to help you in the federal contracting arena because the competition pool is going to go smaller. So again, I would say if you're ready, go for it. And join our Alignable group, because while you're going through this process, you might have some questions, so on and so forth, and we'll be there to help you.
Fantastic. All right, folks, I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can actually get ourselves a little bit bigger here. Oops. And I just lost my questions. Hold on one second. Let me pull that up. So we've got a bunch of questions. And so Victoria, the one that we often get, because we have a large population, did you know that 81% of all small businesses are solopreneurs? Yeah, a huge number. And so, one of the key questions coming out of the gate is, do I have to be a large business to get a government contractor? I'm a sole business and have no employees. Do I need to be an LLC? You know, are there any sort of minimum thresholds for getting into the game?
Yeah, well, as long as you're rule of thumb, and there are some exceptions to this, as long as you're 500 employees or less, you can certainly go into the game. But what I always caution folks is make sure that when you go in there, you're going to be ready to perform. Because, for example, a quick story. I knew the small business person, and she was a graphic artist. She just got out of college and she started going into the government contracting arena. Well, lo and behold, she got a $4 million contract. She was only one person. So what she had to do is right away take that money and hire other subcontractors to help fulfill that contract. So just because you're one person doesn't mean you can't get your foot in the door. You absolutely can. You just need to be savvy and understand that you're going to have to hire some folks to help you, or you become a subcontractor to a prime, a larger entity, and you can get into the government contracting arena that way.
That's fantastic. So absolutely, it doesn't matter about how large your company is. It's just where you play, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a prime? Do you want to be a sub? You know, one of the ways you can get your toe in the door is to actually become a sub for one of the primes, because they can get access to more funding if you are highly certified. And they can bring you in, they can actually get access to more money. So it works to their advantage in many ways. So the next set of questions is really all about how it goes back to that first discussion about how do I figure out if the government actually buys what I have to offer. So we have everything from people who sell wigs to outplacement services, voiceover actors, digital marketing, contracting work, maintaining equipment, for post offices, embassies, military bases. Do they actually buy consulting services like strategy, marketing, advertising? How would I figure that out, Victoria?
Yeah, there is federal government. There's a reason why the federal government is the largest purchaser in the world. So the answer to all those questions, yes, more than likely they do purchase your services or your products. But what I would recommend, because you know, a certain purchase or product might be a hot item this year, not next year. So what I would recommend is always do your due diligence and do your market research. Go to the federal procurement database and see. It's going to give you an option, you know, management consulting services or voiceover actors. See if there's a need for that. So for example, voiceover actor, I can see folks getting hired to do the voiceovers on our military commercials. Just an example. So absolutely go to that database. You can go to USA Spending, look to see if there's a need for what you're currently selling or producing at this moment. If the need isn't there now, it doesn't mean it won't be there later on in the year or next year. So always make a habit of going in there and seeing what's going on.
Fantastic. So here's a tough question, interesting angle, all about government red tape. So John asks, over the years, we've been a subcontractor on a few government contracts. What keeps us from bidding as a prime contractor has been the enormous legal expense and the time needed to go through the hundreds of pages of an RFP. It's very daunting. So what resources are out there, maybe from the SBA or others, that would help someone who's got that experience as a sub but wants to make the step up to being a prime?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. So, so yes, I don't know when he started to go into the prime world, but I know that it's very cumbersome and there's a lot of documents that are needed. Right now, we are doing it electronically, so it's a little bit more streamlined. But there's, you know, it's the federal government. There's a lot of documents. So, what I would recommend if you do need assistance and you're kind of stuck midway, the SBA does have multiple resources that are at no cost. So you can go to your resource partners like the small business development centers. You can go to your PTAC partners. They work along with the SBDCs, which is the Small Business Development Center. The PTACs are the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. They're there to help specific folks that are looking into going into the contracting arena. So find out where you're located. Go to sba.gov/local assistance, local-assistance, put in your zip code, and it's going to give you those resources, and they'll be able to assist you with that.
Fantastic. So Alexandra is already enrolled in sam.gov and has all the numbers and the codes, and just wants to have any tips that you have for how do I do searching on those databases for things like lodging, catering, meetings. Are there any tricks to the trade on how you create your search queries that will help her?
Yeah, I would say come join our Alignable group, because there are different little tricks that you can do while you're in there, but every website's a little bit different. So one thing I do want to mention to Alexandra and those that are on sam.gov or are thinking about registering, make sure you have a valid, updated website. The very first thing contracting officers look at is they'll Google you to see if you have a valid, updated website and see if there's, professional look and feel to it, if there's testimonials on there, things of that nature. So always keep that in mind. As soon as you go to sam.gov, you want to be able to market yourself in every aspect possible, because we're going to be looking. We want to get certifiable, very good, highly rated folks to come into the federal contracting arena.
Okay, Victoria, here's a great question. And I did not set this one up, but this goes back to our conversation about the NAICS codes and the fact that they were created 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is actually Todd. It's not me asking this, but what if your industry is not listed in NAICS, right? So think about it. These codes were created literally before the internet boom. So there's nothing for cybersecurity consulting, even running into some computer repair or challenges around that. What do you do if your industry doesn't even show up as a NAICS code? How do you figure out what's the right high level one to get yourself into?
Yeah, I would do, so for example, I think there should be something there on computer. Oh my goodness.
Computer software, I think, is the big catch-all.
Yes. So I would say to go into that and kind of keep it, yes, it's a little bit outdated, and the federal government does take a little bit of time to update things, but eventually it will catch up and all your information will be in there. But in the meantime, choose the one that is most likely falls that you can, technically fall under, because that's going to help you get your foot in the door. And then when you're doing those searches, you'll be able to put in those NAICS codes. So the contracting officer will be able to see exactly what you do based on the NAICS codes that you provide in your searches or in your.
That would actually be a great thread for us to start in the group. It's hey, if you went looking for your industry and it wasn't found, let us know. And then through your contacts, we can start feeding it back to them so they can get it up to date. So we had John earlier had talked about just sort of wanting to step up to be a prime, and he sort of came back and said, how do you find the primes to work with? Do you go and network with the primes? How do I track down who in my industry is acting as a prime, and what's the best way to kind of not break open that door to sort of say, hey, I'm here, I'd love to help, and build relationships with those folks. And first, I guess you could search for them on Alignable and see if they're there. That would be a great place to start. But if they're huge, they may not be, since we're mostly small businesses. But take it away.
Well, there's a website called we call it a Subnet Site, and if you go to our Alignable group, you'll see the link on there. It's one of those links that have a lot of letters and words, so I wouldn't even be able to repeat it without having it in front of me. But it's called the Subnet Site, and what that site does, it's a database of subcontracting opportunities posted by the prime contractors, those large contractors that are looking for small businesses to kind of join their contracting journey as subcontractors. So you can go on there on Subnet and kind of do a reverse search and see, who's looking for people like me and how can I contact them? All of that is in that website.
Fantastic. So Angie has a question about hub zones, and she called them opportunity zones. And I think it's a little bit of a not really understanding how the hub zones work. It's just asking, it's what we can do to do work in opportunity zones. But actually the hub zones are where you're located, right? If your business is in that hub zone, when your employees are in that hub zone, then you can bid for contracts, but they don't necessarily have to be contracts that are in the hub zone, right? Your business has to be there. The contracts can be outside of that area.
Correct. So one of the criteria is to be a Hubzone certified, is that your business needs to be in a hub zone. But here's what's a neat thing about it. Let's say you have your headquarters and you have a warehouse somewhere else. whether it's your headquarters or your warehouse that's in a hub zone, you'll still be able to qualify. So as long as you're in that hub zone, you'll be able to qualify. Another criteria, if I remember correctly, I think it's 31% of your employees have to be from a hub zone. So it doesn't need to be the same one that you're in, but it can be another one, another hub zone. So there is different criteria to be able to qualify for that. And again, we're going to list all of these links for you to learn more in our Alignable group. But yes, so that's the answer there.
Super. So a couple of questions, one from Sandy and then another from an anonymous person really saying, what's the tipping point for classification for being a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business in terms of certification? You know, where's the threshold in terms of what percentage of the business needs to be owned by a woman or a minority in order to qualify?
They both are 51%. So the nice
51.
thing here is that if you're a woman-owned and you're a Hispanic woman, you can, or African-American woman or Asian woman or a veteran woman, you can do multiple certifications. Remember, the more certifications you have, the smaller your competitive pool is, and the greater chances is for you to get a contract. So in her case, if she's minority owned and she's also woman owned, do both of those certifications.
Awesome. So we got Latrina, who has mastered the art. She is already a small disadvantaged, woman-owned, Hubzone, economically disadvantaged, woman-owned, and just got approved for transportation provider for FEMA. She's on her way to getting the 8A certification. How will the game change once she gets that certification, and what will it mean for her and her business?
That is so great. So first of all, Latrina, congratulations. That is excellent. I'm so happy to hear that you got all those certifications. So once you come into the 8A program and you get started and you're accepted, those certifications are really going to help you too, because when you're going for these 8A contracts, the fact that you have all these additional certifications, the competitive pool is going to get smaller and smaller for you, which means you're going to have a larger percentage of obtaining some contracts. So that's very good that you're doing that. Now, while you're waiting to get accepted, or I don't know if you're already accepted, but if you're waiting to get accepted, or for those of you who are not in the 8A program but do have some of these certifications, you can still go to these websites that I provided and look for contracts that have set asides for a women-owned business or veteran-owned business, and go after those particular contacts, because those are set aside specifically for your certification levels.
Fantastic. And Dana asked the question of, once I get accepted to the 8A program, is it something that I am locked and loaded for 9 years, or is there sort of like an annual test that they have to certify?
Well, there are going to be annual reviews. So every year. So what happens is, in the SBA world, when you are accepted, you're going to be given a business opportunity specialist, kind of a business coach that will work with you to make sure that you're in compliance. And every year you're going to have an annual review to make sure that you're doing everything on time, staying under budget, you have all your paperwork, all your certifications, things of that nature. So the answer to that is yes. If for some reason something is not correct, and of course the federal government will always give you time to correct it. But if it's egregious and it's not correct, you can be booted out of the program. Or if you say, you know what, federal contracting isn't for me, I'd rather focus elsewhere, you can voluntarily remove yourself from the program. But remember, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for up to 9 years. So, and the program, it's been around for a very long time. So I always want to make sure that folks understand that before they jump in, because a lot of folks get very excited, they do all the paperwork, they jump in, and they think that SBA is going to hand them the contracts or market for them. That's not their role. You're going to have to search for the contracts. You're going to have to market yourself and contact those contract officers. SBA is there to make sure, to kind of point you to the right direction and show you where to go, but also to make sure that you're being compliant with the federal government.
Fantastic. And I'm gonna let you breathe for a second, because I'm going to try and ask this question and answer it, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. How's that? So the question is, and there's a bunch of questions about this, about finding similar government resources at the state, local, or city level. How do you find them? And while you were chatting last one, I just literally went and did a Google search for Massachusetts government contracts and hit search. The first 4 were companies trying to sell me something. But if I went down and I actually got to the mass.gov site, there was a specific site that they've created just for contracting. So my guess, the answer to this is your friend in this case, maybe Google, just doing a quick search, or your favorite search engine, do a quick search looking for whatever it is, state, local level, municipal, and put government or contracting in that search, and you will probably find the right place. But are there any other resources out there that one can look for?
No, I think that's wonderful. And remember, so for example, here in South Florida, people usually think, oh, Miami, the only city in South Florida. We have over 26 cities and villages in South Florida. So think each of those have their own contracting opportunities. So think about the county that you're in, think about the city that you're in, your surrounding cities, those that are 100 miles out. You can start, spreading your wings in that aspect and do the searches, Eric, that you had mentioned. One thing I also want to mention, I forgot, when you register to sam.gov, be prepared to get a ton of emails from private sector companies, and some of them are spam, trying to sell you a bunch of things and so on and so forth. So just be careful with that, because there are some folks out there that are not legitimate. So always do your due diligence. If you're looking for something from the government, make sure it says .gov at the end, then that's legitimate. Of course, Alignable, we're here, we're legitimate. And if you have any questions as to whether you should open this or look into this site or something, join us on our Alignable group and share that with me, and I can look into that for you.
Fantastic. So Rick has a question. He owns his business with his wife 50-50. And he said, do I have to sell her the rest of my business to qualify for a women-owned business? Will that help us qualify or not? And you had said earlier the 51 is the key, but 51. So you don't have to sell the whole thing. You just have to move like a percentage 1%. Over, 1% over. And Rick, you'll be in a position to actually take advantage of the women-owned business. But certainly, come to the forum and sort of lay out the specifics of it. And Victoria may be able to help you, guide you as to whether it's 51, 52, or whatever, based on your personal setup. So Deborah asked that she would love to have a workshop on knowing how to write proposals and bids. That sounds like a great topic that we could dive into in a future session. We could probably bring in some people like Rick, who, one of the guys that earlier who had said he's been doing this for a long time, and have them share their experiences. I know my brother-in-law has been doing a lot of federal bidding and state bidding for a long time and sort of mastered the art, but it is an art, right? It's an act of marketing your business and what you can provide. And it's definitely a skill that you want to master if you want to be successful with this. So we should definitely set that into the list of things that we should cover later. So I'm going to start to wrap things up here. Again, thank you to everybody who attended today. We have created this group that you can just join, and there's a link to that in the chat. All of the resources are there. If we didn't get to your question, just pop them in there. Victoria will be checking that and answering your questions. And our goal is really to start to build up a resource base for all of you to help you regardless of what stage you're at, and potentially bring in people from the government to talk about their agencies, because there's over 20 different major agencies that you can bid with, all of them doing different things and buying products and services. So to join the group, there's a link in chat. We will also be putting a link in the email that we'll be sending out to you with this recording. So you'll be able to find that. Simply go there, click join, introduce yourself to the other people in the group. It's a great way to meet people on Alignable is to join groups and literally just interact with the folks that are there. But be rest assured that Victoria will be in there answering questions, on a pretty frequent basis. And we'll be continuing to do these sessions and diving deeper and deeper based on the feedback that we get from you. So do take the time to go and answer that survey for us. So with that, I will thank Victoria, our guest here today, who used to be with the SBA, and thank goodness she's now with Alignable. It is a vast resource for all of you to tap. We couldn't be more thrilled to have her on the team, and we look forward to seeing all of you on upcoming sessions that we'll be doing. And we hope that this helps provide you with a little bit of ground